Okay, show of hands in the comment section. Tell me if you've ever done this before. Picked up a book just for fun, planning to read a few pages, and before you know it, you are completely emotionally invested, and it's 3 a.m. This had happened to me several times in 24, and today I'm going to tell you my favorite books of the year, the ones that made me laugh, cry, and that have totally wrecked my sleep schedule. Hi there, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Sylvia, and I love talking about books, cozy moments, and romanticizing everyday life. Today, we're diving into some of my favorite reads of the year, ones that I think you will absolutely love. So today, I'm going to be sharing my top 10 favorite books of 2024. So real quick before we begin, just a couple of things. First, I want to make sure that you know that these books were not necessarily published in 2024. They are just the ones that I read in 2024. And so I think last year I read between 42 and 45-ish books, and it's very hard to choose a top 10. I had a really hard time narrowing it down to 10, but this video would be like 7 hours long if I talked to you about all the books that I loved. But they are my top 10 favorite. And some of them, I read them in all different formats. Some I have physical version, others I read on my Kindle, and a couple of them I listened to on Audible. I'm also going to be pointing out which ones were part of Kindle Unlimited. And so if you're not familiar with Kindle Unlimited, what that is it's Amazon's reading program. And so you pay $9.99 a month, and then you are able to download and read as many books as you want that month for $9.99, as long as they're part of the Kindle Unlimited program. The other thing that you might hear me mention, and if you're not familiar with the term, is auto-buy author. So an auto-buy author is basically an author that no matter what they come out with, I automatically buy it. And I do have a couple auto-buy authors in my list. So with that, let's get started. So the first one I'm going to share with you is called The Things We Leave Unfinished by Rebecca Yarros. Now, I have never read a Rebecca Yarros book. I've seen all the hype with The Fourth Wing and all of that. I do read across a wide variety of genres, but fantasy is one I've only kind of dabbled in. There are some fantasy series that surprised me and I really, really enjoyed, but in general, it's just not a genre I'm drawn to. And so when I saw this at first, I was confused. I was like, is it the same author? Because this is like a totally different genre. And it is. And this book, if I had to pick a number one book out of all 10 that I'm going to give you today, this is probably the one. So I'm going to read you the blurb to give you an idea of what the book's about. So 28-year-old Georgia Stanton has to start over after she gave up almost everything in a brutal divorce: a New York house, her friends, and her pride. Now back home at her late great-grandmother's estate in Colorado, she finds herself face-to-face with Noah Harrison, the best-selling author of 1 million books where the cover is always people nearly kissing. He's just as arrogant in person as in interviews, and she'll be darned if the good-looking writer of love stories thinks he's the one to finish her grandmother's final novel, even if the publisher swears he's the perfect fit. Noah is at the pinnacle of his career. With book and movie deals galore, there isn't much the golden boy of modern fiction hasn't accomplished. But he can't walk away from what might be the best book of the century, the one his idol, Scarlett Stanton, left unfinished. Coming up with a fitting ending for the legendary author is one thing, but dealing with her beautiful, stubborn, cynical great-granddaughter Georgia is quite another. But as they read Scarlett's words in both the manuscript and her box of letters, they start to realize why Scarlett never finished the book. It's based on her real-life romance with a World War II pilot, and the ending isn't a happy one. Georgia knows all too well that love never works out. And while the chemistry and connection between her and Noah is undeniable, she's as determined as ever to learn from her great-grandmother's mistakes, even if it means destroying Noah's career. So this book I absolutely adored. And one of my favorite elements is the historical, it's not historical fiction, but the historical element with the World War II romance. And I love the idea of this great-granddaughter thinking she knows her great-grandmother and they have this beautiful relationship, but there was so much of her life before her that she never knew. And so there were so many plot twists in this book. I feel like the characterization was just flawless. I was hooked from literally from the first few pages, and I want to say I finished this book in like one, maybe two sittings. Like I could not put it down. The next one is The Cracks Between Us by Caitlin Moss. Now, Caitlin Moss is an indie author who I love. Her books, I think there's one called 16 Summers. I might be messing the title up, but that was my very first Caitlin Moss book that I read. And I read that a couple of years ago, and it wrecked me. I was bawling. And honestly, I couldn't pick up one of her books for a little while after that because it was just so emotionally intense. It's beautiful, and she's a beautiful writer. The one that I read in 2024 was The Cracks Between Us. And the blurb for that is, it was intoxicating, thrilling. It was so unlike her. Ayla was always a good wife, never reckless, always faithful until she wasn't. Ayla Sorensen doesn't know what happened to her marriage. She actively participated in building the life she and her husband Ben created, but she no longer recognizes herself when she remembers the role she dreamt up 15 years ago. While Ben has been building a successful career as an attorney in Seattle, Ayla has remained in the shadows, taking care of their home and tending to their children, while struggling to find a balance between the monotony and the chaos. They appear to be shining pillars of marital perfection, attending church on Sundays, volunteering, and surpassing every expectation society has of them. But deep down, Ayla knows their marriage is crumbling. She often wonders if Ben even realizes it. When Ayla unexpectedly runs into someone from her past, the illusion she and Ben created begins to shatter. While many merely wonder about the road not taken, Ayla runs down at full speed. After months of authentic and insatiable passion, Ayla rivals her devotion against her desires and must decide which one is worth fighting for. So this book, I mean, in the beginning, part of me just wanted to not like her character because, like, in my mindset, in real life, the way I believe is before any marriage gets to the point where someone is going to cross that line and have an affair, like, end the marriage. Like, I'm not, a fan of divorce. I believe marriage is sacred before God. And anyway, that's a whole other topic. But if someone is going to cross that line, to me, there's no excuse to not get divorced first. And so my instinct was to dislike her. But then Caitlin created such a 3D character in Ayla that you almost, I don't want to say empathize with where she was, but you definitely could relate to it in some ways, especially if you're a stay-at-home mom and you know how that feels. And that is true that, your husband gets to go out and he's having adult conversations and he has work friends and work, things. And, especially when your kids are little and you're at home, covered in spit up, wondering like what's happening. And even though I raised my children at home, I wouldn't change that for the world. It was the greatest privilege and blessing of my life. Those were probably the best years of my life, but you can't understand why the character feels the way she feels. And so following that story, it was really interesting. I really, really enjoyed the book. The next one by Courtney Walsh, it's called My Lucky Charm by Courtney Walsh, is also a KU book. Now, Courtney Walsh is definitely one of my auto-buy authors. I think I have 3 of them on here. She is definitely an auto-buy author. I love her books. My favorite thing about her books is there's never any surprises as far as spicy content. Sometimes I'm not a big spice reader. I like sweet romance, closed door romance. That's my jam. And so I know that her books are always going to be clean. There's no surprise F-bombs on the page. It's just, I know what I'm getting, and I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoy her stories. And it was actually super fun because 2 of my nieces are old enough now to where they're allowed to read, some sweet romance. And so I actually shared a couple of her books with them, and they loved them. And so that's just a really fun thing to be able to do with the younger girls in your life that love to read, is to share some of your favorite authors. And so Courtney Walsh is the bomb. So the first one of hers that I'm going to talk about is The Lucky Charm. Super cute, Sports romances have been all the rage lately, and so this is a hockey romance. So the blurb for this is, so when the coach of the Chicago Comets gives me the opportunity to help their star player, newly traded to their team, acclimate to life in Chicago, I'm all in. I have to be. After my last job went up in flames, I have something to prove. It turns out that the player, Grayson Hawk, is the rudest, most off-putting, reclusive guy I've ever met. It also turns out that he is a beautiful stranger I kissed on New Year's Eve. I can do this job, I can do this job, I can do this job, and I can really well. I can make Gray's life easier, show him all the reasons to fall in love with this city, and in the process, hopefully completely forget the amazing kiss ever happened. How hard can it be? We're total opposites anyway. I love people and all their stories. Gray loves hockey and nothing else. I love to talk. Gray only stares. I'm happy-go-lucky. Gray's all work and no play. There's just one problem. The more I spend time with Grayson Hawk, the more I start to see that underneath his bristly, standoffish exterior, he's nothing like the man everyone thinks he is. And suddenly, all the reasons for keeping my distance, staying professional, and not falling for someone again are impossible to remember. So this was so cute, and I am such a sucker for like a grumpy sunshine romance. So he's the grumpy, brooding, hero, and she's this bubbly, heroine. But this story was super cute, and I definitely recommend you checking this one out and all of Courtney's other books. The next book I'm going to share is actually by a writer friend of mine, and it's called The Library of Second Chances, and it's by Savannah Carlyle. Love this book. It is such a fantastic beach read. If you are a book lover, you're most likely a Little Free Library lover. My kids know, like, I will turn that car around so quick if we pass by a new Little Free Library. I know where all the local ones in my area are. I drop books off. Actually, we were just at the YMCA a couple days ago, me and a couple of friends of mine. We were working out and we were leaving, and I was like, whoa, wait, there's a Little Free Library. And so like I had to stop and check it out. And so this book is super cute because it's all about a Little Free Library. And fun fact with this book is one of the places that my family goes to almost every summer is Amelia Island in Florida. And so Savannah actually lives on Amelia Island, and that's where we actually met in person, which was super fun meeting her in real life. And the book is very much inspired by Amelia Island. And so many times while I was reading, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I think I know where that house is she's describing, or I think I know where that is. And so it was a super fun book to read. And so let me give you the little blurb on that one. So daily walks along the sparkling shoreline and chats with her best friend are part of bookstore owner Lucy Sullivan's slow-paced life. And that's just how she likes to spend her time in the close-knit community of her picturesque village. Lucy also adores maintaining the town's Little Free Library. Those who leave a book there include notes to the reader. And Lucy herself has gotten a few that have her smitten. Life couldn't be better in her quaint beach village with a sway of seagrass and the soft coastal breeze. So when she hears Logan Lancaster is brought in to solve the town's budget deficit, Lucy isn't at all excited about his vision for growth along the waterfront. To make matters worse, it's Lucy who's appointed to oppose Logan in a series of public forums planned for the expansion. The quaint life she's built for herself will never be the same. They couldn't be more opposite, except for one tiny thing. Unbeknownst to both of them, they've been swapping anonymous notes in a Little Free Library. So this book, I have goosebumps reading this blurb. This book was so cute. And just the cast of characters that she created, the beautiful world building and the setting. Even if you've never visited Amelia Island, you'll feel like you have after you read this book. So it's definitely a great book to put on your TBR for summertime. So the next book on my list is Kisses and Croissants by Anne-Sophie Juhanneau. This was another super cute, sweet, clean romance. I read a lot of romance last year, mostly because of a writing projects, plural, that I've been working on. And so I always tend to read a lot of kind of the same genre that I'm writing. And this is another super clean one. If you want to give this to, teens, and it's adorable. It's about this young girl who gets into this exclusive ballet company in Paris. And so she moves to Paris for the summer. and she falls in love. And honestly, like, this is a kind of book that makes you want to take up ballet and audition for Swan Lake. The blurb for Kisses and Croissants is Mia Genro has always known she's destined to be a professional ballerina. In fact, it's in her blood. According to family legend, her too many greats to count grandmother once danced for the Paris Opera and was painted by Degas himself. Her parents say it's just a fantasy, but to Mia, it's so much more than that. It's her fate. Mia's planning to spend a magical summer in France, pursuing her dream, but as she pirouettes into Paris, she soon realizes it may be a bit more complicated than she hoped. For starters, there's her rival, Audrey, who will stop at nothing to show her up. Then there's her ballet instructor, whose impossibly high standards push her to breaking point. And then there's Louis. Devastatingly, distractingly charming Louis. He's eager to show Mia his city, and Mia is more than happy to hop on his Vespa and wrap her arms around him as they pass the gleaming lights of the Eiffel Tower. Mia's summer was supposed to be about ballet, but there's a reason Paris is called the City of Love. So this book is basically as sweet as it sounds. It is so adorable. And I don't think it's YA. I think it's an adult, I don't know if it's YA or if it's adult, but anyway, I read it and it was fantastic, and you should definitely read it too. But it just gives off all the cutesy vibes. It's the perfect escape read. So the next book I wanted to tell you about is The Magic of Lemon Drop Pies. Now, that title might sound familiar to you because last summer, The Magic of Lemon Drop Pies was actually turned into a Hallmark movie. And I had this book on my TBR for forever. I have a ton of Rachel Linden, who is the author. I have several of her books on my TBR. But as soon as I saw that it was coming out on Hallmark Channel, I was like, oh my gosh, I have got to read this book before it comes out on movie, right? And so I did. And honestly, the movie was great, but the book was so much better. And so let me give you the blurb. Lolly Blanchard's life only seems to give her lemons. 10 years ago, after her mother's tragic death, she broke up with her first love and abandoned her dream of opening a restaurant in order to keep her family's struggling Seattle diner afloat and to care for her younger sister and grieving father. Now, a decade later, she dutifully whips up the diner's famous lemon meringue pies each morning while still pining for all she's lost. As Lolly's 33rd birthday approaches, her quirky great-aunt gives her a mysterious gift, 3 lemon drops, each of which allows her to live a single day in a life that might have been hers. What if her mom hadn't passed away? What if she had opened her own restaurant in England? What if she hadn't broken up with the only man she's ever loved? Surprising and empowering, each experience helps Lolly let go of her regrets and realize the key to transforming her life lies not in redoing her past, but in having the courage to fully embrace her present. Okay, so there are so many things I loved about this book. One, I really loved the fact that it's an adult book, but it still had that whimsy to it. But the older you get, the more you look back on life, and you can certainly, ask yourself what you could have done differently, right? And so I love that, like, in this fun way, Lolly gets these lemon drops, these magic lemon drops. It's definitely one of those books that will keep you turning the page. The next book is another book by Courtney Walsh, the one who wrote My Lucky Charm. And this one, it is not part of KU, but I did read the ebook of this. Some of these were NetGalley books, and so I actually got to read arcs of them. And this was one that I had gotten an arc of. And again, I absolutely loved this book. And so the blurb is, sometimes you're so busy writing other people's stories that you lose the plot of your own. This wasn't how Kelsey Worthington's day was supposed to go. She wasn't supposed to be picking up Starbucks for her smarmy boss. She wasn't supposed to get hit by a car that jumped the curb. And she certainly wasn't supposed to wake up in a hospital room next to Georgina Tate, the legendary matriarch of New York City businesswomen. Kelsey and Georgina couldn't be more opposite. Kelsey's a dreamer, a writer who questions her own skill. And Georgina is a confident businesswoman whose years of shouldering her way into boardrooms and making her voice heard have made her far too outspoken for the faint of heart. But now, when Georgina's failing kidneys force her to face some big regrets about the way she's lived her life, the two women recognize they share a common thread. Maybe it's time to confront a few things. They must ask themselves, what if I said yes to everything I've always said no to? With Georgina as her companion, Kelsey soon finds herself doing things she's never done before. Eating street food, swimming in the ocean, matchmaking for Georgina with the help of Georgina's handsome son, and writing her own romance, both in book form and in real life. So begins the Summer of Yes. I loved this book. It was so cute, and it does make you, so let me preface this first with she agrees to say yes to all the things she normally says no to, but she has like a moral code of conduct. And so as long as it doesn't compromise her, she's going to say yes to things that she would never normally do and that won't harm her. But it makes you think like, maybe I should have a summer of yes. What are things that I should be saying yes to that I say no to? And honestly, it had me thinking a lot about that as I read it. So maybe 2025 will be my summer of yes. The next book is Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. Now, I will say that this book is a sequel to Better Than the Movies, which came out a few years ago. My nieces, not the two that I mentioned earlier, another two of my nieces actually let me borrow it because they read it and they were like, this book is amazing, you have to read it. And it was so cute. And so this is actually a sequel. So if this book sounds like something you'd be interested in, you should definitely check out Better Than the Movies first. So this blurb is, for a beautiful few months, Wes had his dream girl, strong-willed girl next door Liz. But right as the two were about to set off to UCLA to start their freshman year together, tragedy struck. Wes was left dealing with the fallout, which ultimately meant losing Liz in the process. Flash forward a few months, and Wes and Liz find themselves in college together. In a healthier place now, Wes knows he's broke Liz's heart when he ended things, but he's determined to make her fall back in love with him. Wes knows Liz better than anyone, and he has a foolproof plan to win her back with the rom-com worthy big gestures she loves. Only Liz will have none of it. Wes has to scheme like a rom-com hero to figure out how to even see her. And worse, Liz has a new friend, a guy friend. Still, Wes won't give up, adapting his clever plans and going hard to get Liz's attention and win back her affection. But after his best efforts get him nowhere, Wes is left wondering if their relationship is really over for good. If you're a fan of romance novels, you'll get all the tiny like references to like romance, like the grand gesture and all of that. And so just a super cute story. Again, it's a sequel. I will say this, that this book is closed door, it's clean. But some of Lynn Painter's other books are open door. And so if you're going to check out her as an author and her backlist, you might just want to read the reviews and see which ones are adult and which ones are young adult and just kind of gauge them depending on, your reading preferences. And so the next one is The Rule Book by Sarah Adams. Again, Sarah is an auto-buy author, but I did hear that her new one, Beg, Borrow, or Steal, is open door. And so I'm not sure how I'm going to like that shift. I don't know how open door it is. Haven't read that one yet, but up until this point, I've really enjoyed all the Sarah Adams books. And so this one is a sports romance. And the Rule Book is actually the sequel. I don't know if it's a sequel. I wouldn't say it was a sequel, to be honest. I don't think you need to read them in order. Even though it always helps to read them in order. I can't not read books in order, but if you're like, I just want to grab this one, I don't want to bother with the other one, you totally could. And it's a really, really cute story. And so Nora McKenzie's entire career lands in the hands of famous NFL tight end Derek Bender, who also happens to be her extremely hot college ex-boyfriend. Nora didn't end things as gracefully as she could have back then, and now it's come back to haunt her. Derek is her first client as an official full-time sports agent, and he's holding a grudge. Derek sets his sights on a little friendly revenge. If Nora McKenzie, the first girl to ever break his heart, wants to be his agent, he'll let her be his agent. The plan is simple. Make Nora's life absolutely miserable. But if Derek knows anything about the woman he once loved, she won't quit easily. Instead of giving in, Nora starts a scheme of her own. But then a wild night in Vegas leads to Nora and Derek in bed the next morning, married. With their rule book out the window, could this new relationship save their careers or spark the romance of a lifetime? I will say, even though they end up in bed together, there's nothing explicit that happened. And so this book was super cute. And so if you read the cheat sheet, you know, the cheat sheet was, I forget the main character on that book's name, but he basically, him and his football friends made a cheat sheet on how to get Bree, I remember her name, the female character of the cheat sheet, to fall in love with him. And so this one, the rule book, is kind of the same concept, except they have like rules on how they're supposed to interact because they don't want to get romantically involved with each other and they're trying to keep the relationship professional. And so another super cute book. Okay, so book 10, my final favorite of 2024, was The Christmas Coin by Lindsay Gibson. So Lindsay is also one of my auto-buy authors now. I love her stories. I think she's such a talented writer. I especially feel connected to like her Christmas stories. I'm really drawn to her Christmas stories. Her summer books are fantastic as well, don't get me wrong, but I love a good Christmas book, and she has been hitting it on the head like the past 2 years since she started writing them. Professional ballet dancer Amelia Collins is blindsided when an accident results in a career-ending injury. With no other options but to start over, she leaves city life behind to remodel a country home in the quaint village of White Bridge, Connecticut. She buys a sprawling 1870s farmhouse on 5 acres, complete with a large barn. Running on nothing but hope, she moves in only weeks before Christmas. White Bridge's irresistible holiday traditions, sledding under twinkle lights, a ride on the Holiday Express train, and cutting down a live evergreen at the town's tree farm put Amelia in the festive spirit. Adding to the magic, she discovers an old European coin with a story, while loading some boxes into her attic. A story that might upend everything, especially when single dad Benjamin Walsh finds out about it. And when she learns he's in charge of her remodel, she isn't quite sure how the holiday will go. So I loved this story, and this is also like a dual timeline story. So you're going to get the history of this mysterious coin and the story that she finds. You're going to get the history and the origins of that. And then you're going to see her discover the coin and how that plays out in her life in modern times. I always love the idea of watching a character start over, because sometimes the unimaginable happens, and thinking about having to start over, that's a very daunting thought. The hero in the story, Benjamin Walsh, his wife passes away and he's left with, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 daughters. And you just think about it and you're like, oh my gosh, how would a person do that? You know, especially as a mom, you think it's hard enough as being a single mom. But then when you watch single dads try to raise kids, especially daughters, like that's a tough job. And so I love that there are these real life conflicts happening. It was such a beautiful story. And I will say this, I typically like to read like in season. I love reading fall books in the fall. I love Christmas books at Christmas. I love Valentine's Day at Valentine's Day. You get what I'm saying. Beach books in the summer. But this, even though this was a Christmas story, I would totally read this at any point in the winter. Like Christmas is past, but if this book piqued your interest, I would definitely read it. And this is also part of KU. So if you're part of Kindle Unlimited, which I'm not sponsored by Kindle Unlimited, I know I keep plugging it. I pay for Kindle Unlimited myself every month, and I just find it so useful. Years ago, I stopped buying physical books, at least whenever I can. Obviously, I just posted a book haul from McKay's last week. I still buy physical books, but I really try to only buy the ones that I love and that I want to have a hard copy of, or that I think I'll read again. So Kindle Unlimited has been super helpful in just helping me read as much as I want without having to find somewhere to put those books. I do want to share one more thing with you, and I'm going to link this along with all of the books that I mentioned in the description. So I read a lot on my Kindle, And I get a lot of NetGalley books that I download to my Kindle. And then obviously, like I mentioned, I do a lot of KU books on my Kindle. But I have to tell you about this magic little thingy, okay? So this, you clip it onto your Kindle, and it comes with a handy dandy remote control. And basically what this does is it flips the page for you. Okay, so this has been a game changer for me because I do a lot of my reading in bed at night. And so I love reading from my Kindle because I can make the screen super dim. It doesn't bother my husband, the light from it. I'm not a fan of e-readers, I'll be honest. It took me a long time to get into the habit of reading from an e-reader. And again, the main reason for that is because I just had to stop buying books. But I do not like reading from an iPad or my iPhone or anything with blue light. Blue light messes with my brain. I'm like wide awake and I have a really hard time falling asleep and sleeping well. And so my Kindle, I have a Paperwhite, really helps with that. And this little thingy-majiggy here clicks the page. It turns the page for you. So I can literally, I can lay in bed and I can just hold the book. I don't have to worry. I have little tiny thumbs. I don't have to worry about trying to swipe my page. I just have to click my little button and it clicks and the page turns. So this thing is fantastic. And it was cheap. I want to say it was I don't think it was more than $12 or $15. I don't think, but I'll link it. But anyway, it was well worth every penny. And so I just wanted to share that with all my bookish buddies. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you for listening to me ramble on about all of my favorite books from 2024. If you have any recommendations of books that you loved, please make sure to drop them in the comments. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel. Hit that bell for future notifications, and we will see you next time. Bye, friends.